new building always brings to mind the remark of a statesman of our times that we shape our buildings, thereafter they shape us. I am nevertheless happy to be here today to inaugurate the new building of the UP Information Commission. The formal recognition of the right to information was an event of immense significance in the lives of citizens. The Central and State Information Commissions, therefore, have an important role to play in the effective implementation of the Right to Information Act of 2005. This also holds good for the UP Information Commission. The new building, I am confident, will assist the process. Free flow of information is essential for the health of a democratic society. This is aptly expressed in the preamble of the Right to Information Act of 2005, and I quote, "Democracy requires that an informed citizenry and transparency of information which are vital to its functioning and also to contain corruption and to hold governments and their instrumentalities accountable to the governed." End of quote. Much before the legislative enactment, our judiciary, in a progressive interpretation of the constitutional provisions, had paved the way towards delineating the right to information. In 1975, in state of Uttar Pradesh versus Rajnarayan case, Justice Matthew had ruled, and I quote him, "In a government of responsibility like ours, where all the agents of the public must be responsible for their conduct, there can be but few secrets. The people of this country have a right to know every public act, everything that is done in a public way by their public functionaries." End of quote. In subsequent judicial pronouncement, the right to know was further elaborated as being inherent in the fundamental rights. The judicial interpretation found reflection in a widespread public movement demanding statutory provisions for such a right. The spirit behind the movement for right to information was summed up in a pithy slogan, "Hamara paisa, hamara hisab, hum janenge, hum jiyenge." The process, conceptually, was initiated when the Parliament enacted the Freedom of Information Act 2002. This was followed by the present Act that came into force on the 12th of October 2005. Its legislative intent was to empower the citizen to promote transparency and accountability in the working of every public authority, reduce the gap between the information provider and the information seeker, enhance efficiency in administration of public authorities, mitigate corruption, and promote good governance. Friends, there can be little doubt that this is one of the most empowering and progressive legislations passed in post-independent India. It is often said that India's RTI Act is one of the world's best laws with an excellent implementation track record. It has salient features such as clear, time-bound implementation schedules with penal provisions for non-compliance, a minimal exceptions clause, and a well-structured appeal system. These provide for better governance and impact on the very nature of governance itself. I highlight three aspects. One, until this the passage of this act, the disclosure of information held by public authorities in India was governed exclusively by the Official Secret Act 1923, as the Honourable Judge has just mentioned. It was a legacy of the British colonial rule that encouraged secrecy and opaqueness in administration and was designed to deny information about government activities to the people. Second, the RTI Act is different from other enactments in its operation. For most other laws, the executor of the law is the government, and the citizen is normally required to comply with these laws. The RTI Act is the very opposite. Here, the citizen is the executor and the government has to act in response to directive from citizens. It thus reverses the role of the public and the government. This is a new situation and requires getting used to by the administrators. And thirdly, another radical provision of the Act is that the information seeker need not to give a reason for demanding the information held by the public authority or prove his or her locus standi for it. This allows activists and civil society organizations to take up issues on behalf of the marginalized and the unempowered. What then has been achieved by this law in the past 1 decade? There is little disagreement that the basic tenets of the Act have been implemented, the institutional mechanisms are in place and are being used by citizens as a tool to bring in transparency and accountability at all levels of governance. In particular, the RTI Act has had a much higher impact on the quality of life of the poor and the marginalized sections of the society. The institution of Information Commission has also assumed a pivotal position in implementing the law. The Act is being used by civil society organizations and the media to bring about positive changes in the levels of corruption and accountability. Issues like public distribution system, privatization initiatives, pensions, road repairs, electricity connections, telecom complaints have been dealt with by people through the RTI. Many honest officers also feel strengthened as decisions are now open to civil society and media scrutiny, which acts as a deterrent to any extraneous pressures. Perhaps its greatest impact has been in empowering the citizens and making the government more responsive. Sharing of information is a form of co-option. It makes the seeker of information a partner in decision-making process. It has crept into the popular vocabulary and added a verb to it. What is the verb? I will RTI if so and so is not done. At times, the mere threat of an RTI is sufficient to set the government machinery in motion. The transformative power of the Act, however, despite its achievements, is yet to be fully realized. The citizens, the government, the media, and the civil society need to address several constraining factors to ensure a more effective and equitable implementation of the Act. The data available in the annual report for the period 2014 and 15 released by the Central Information Commission is revealing. Only 2030 public authorities under the Government of India registered to submit their RTI returns under Section 25 of the Act in the year, that is 2014-15. Of these, only 75.27% submitted their annual RTI returns. Then, while a total of 7.55 lakh RTI applications were received by the reporting public authorities in the same year, almost 90,000 RTI applications remained pending. Then, the proportion of rejection of RTI at 8.4% of the total also saw an increase in 2014-15 over the previous year's rejection. This is a cause for worry and must be examined. A study by the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative, which tracks trends in the use of RTI across India using both central and state information commission figures, estimates that only 14% of the applications filed under the RTI till 2012-13 came from rural areas, indicating low awareness levels about the RTI in rural areas. It also concluded that the number of women seeking information under the RTI was low. The report noted that the percentage of SCs and STs as RTI users, while still low in absolute numbers, has been increasing every year. Some of the evident constraints in the effective implementation of the Act include lack of adequate public awareness, especially in rural areas, lack of proper system to manage and disseminate information, and capacity of the public information officers or PIOs to deal with the requests, bureaucratic mindsets and attitudes that encourage secrecy, intimidation and threats to information seekers. The last in particular is worrisome. While the civil society organizations and media can act as pressure points, most of the correctives need to be carried out by the government and information commissions. I would like to list 4 of these. 1. There is a need for a sustained mass awareness campaign both at central and state levels to increase public awareness about the RTI and its operations, encourage citizen involvement and increase transparency within the government. The information commissions can play an important role in this regard. Second, there is a need for greater voluntary disclosure of information held by public authorities. Under Section 4 of the Act provides for an elaborate manual for mandatory disclosures of various aspects of the structure and functioning of public authorities and requires that they make suo motu disclosures in public interest. This is essential ingredient for broadening and deepening of the transparency regime. The said section also emphasizes the need for using electronic means for record management and dissemination of information. Indeed, a robust record management is at the very heart of the transparency regime. Thirdly, we have to rid ourselves of the old mindset regarding secrecy of government processes and transactions. Concerns have been expressed in some quarters that the disclosure of information inhibits free and open expression of opinion by government officials during the decision-making process. If the officials have approached the issues with honesty and in accordance with the rules, then this argument does not seem justified. The benefit of disclosure of information far outweighs the inconveniences experienced by decision makers in the government. there is a need to sensitize the public functionaries about the right to information and incorporate training module on the RTI in all government training programs. And fourthly, the person demanding information under the RTI should be emboldened and secure. Of late, there have been reports of attacks and assaults on information seekers. This is disquieting and needs to be taken seriously and prevented. Even if the number of such reported cases is small, this shows the vulnerability of information seekers. Police authorities in states have to be sensitive to this and take effective steps to prevent the occurrence of such incidents. Exemplary punishment of the perpetrators would send a strong message around. I am happy to note that on the recommendation of the UP Information Commission, the government of UP has recently issued necessary directions to all district magistrates and superintendents of police in this regard. I understand that on an average about 3,000 new applications and complaints are filed before the UP Information Commission every month. This is a large figure even for a large state like Uttar Pradesh, and perhaps indicative of the need for improving the quality of voluntary disclosures. Public authorities must be proactive and voluntarily put the maximum possible information in the public domain for the use of citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, the RTI is a powerful tool. It strengthens democracy and promotes good governance by enhancing the citizens' ability to participate in the process. Better implementation of this law requires not only political will but also an active civil society and an acknowledgement of its role. It requires better education of the people and a commitment from all to uphold the rule of law. The UP Information Commission is one of the largest state information commissions under the RTI Act, receiving the largest number of appeals and complaints from the public. The government of Uttar Pradesh deserves commendation for making budgetary provisions to enable expeditious construction of this handsome building. I venture to hope that the UP Information Commission will continue to implement effectively its responsibilities in the letter and spirit of the legislative intent. Jai Hind.